My guest, Kamelah Adams, is the archetype of Joypunk. She has created a business and a movement around fearlessly expressing herself and amplifying others around her to do the same. Kamelah is the founder of Mimi's Fresh Tees. The Portland-based t-shirt company, founded in 2018, seeks to amplify social justice conversations and allow people to wear their truth. Motivated by systematic racism in the education system, owner and designer Kamelah wanted to create a product that brought conversations around discrimination out into the open in a quick and straightforward way. She started designing t-shirts as a way for people to take a stand, break the silence, and start a dialogue by wearing their truth. Kamelah also co-founded PDX Love Over Hate in 2020 after receiving a hateful letter in the mail with racist slurs and threats to hurt her and her family. In response, Adams and friends started PDX Love Over Hate to combat hate through the visual representation of yard signs and matching t-shirts. The campaign's mission is to let everyone who has experienced hate know that they are loved and supported. Thank you for being here, Kamelah.
Thank you for having me.
I've been so excited to learn more about you and your business. You grew up here in Portland. Can you share a little bit about how you feel growing up here in the Northwest City shaped you and your journey to this point?
Yeah, I grew up in the Albina district right next to Unthank Park, and my whole family was in that neighborhood. My aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, and it was just such a vibrant area full of rich culture. I've seen a lot change over the past, X amount of years, but I'm happy to still be a proud Portlander.
Can you talk a little bit about the changes that you've seen in the city from that time?
When I was growing up, the Albina area, which is in North and Northeast Portland, it was pretty much the Black community. Mm-hmm. Like 80% of Black Portlanders lived in the Albina district. And it was such a large, rich community. Everyone knew each other. You couldn't get away with anything bad because your neighbor was probably your cousin, mm-hmm. or your auntie. We've seen a lot change due to gentrification. Like the whole area has just shifted. Portland is progressive, but I really do want to continue to encourage everyone to look around, look at your neighborhood, and if it's not diverse, then you need to say, what can I do to change that?
Mm. And what are some things, do you think, as, like individual neighbors and community members that we can do?
I think it starts with your own community and asking the question as to how come there's not enough racial diversity in my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of neighborhood associations that you can go to and have these conversations with, also city council members. So I just think, starting a conversation and seeing the small changes that we can do to make our community better and more diverse would be a great start.
Can you share with our listeners how Mimi's Fresh Tees went from an idea to a business? And what was that initial spark?
Yeah, so I was a PTA executive in my kids' school for many years. I advocated for change in the education system for roughly 5 or 6 years. So I've been doing a lot of activism work and community engagement work for quite some time. And I designed my first T-shirt for what was the name of that play? Black History Remix. And everyone loved it. And it was just a way that we could express ourselves for Black History Month. And that is where the idea of Mimi's Fresh Tees started. And also, too, when I was in a lot of the PTA meetings, I was the only Black woman in that space. So I said, wouldn't it be cool if I could just wear my truth instead of speaking my truth?
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that too, about why was that something that was meaningful to you, that you could just wear your truth rather than the pressure to always be speaking it?
Yeah, because I believe that, I know from experience that when you're, someone of color or even a woman and you're in a predominantly in a space where you're the minority, you sometimes get exhausted as to speaking your truth. So just use your shirt as a billboard. And that is where the concept of Mimi's Fresh Tees came from.
Is that taking the load off and putting it on
Yeah.
chest?
Yep.
I feel like a lot of female entrepreneurs I know started a company because they were trying to fix an issue or couldn't find what they wanted. And then after realized that they had started a business,
Yeah.
right? And our business owner hat, or should I say t-shirt, sometimes is the last one that we realize that we've put on. At what point did it click for you that like, oh, I'm in business. I'm a business owner, businesswoman?
Yeah, that's a great question. It took about 2 years to really be like, oh, this is a business. This is a brand now.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, oh my gosh, it really exploded in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter movement. I had already had an online store set up with maybe only like a couple of orders every other month.
Yeah.
But that year, it just really exploded. And I did a lot of interviews in the community. And so now, like Mimi's Fresh Teas is a national brand because I do have that e-commerce platform.
And what were some of the challenges of that? I can imagine, the scaling that all of a sudden finding that the T-shirts are in demand and you have this opportunity and you're seeing the momentum of the movement that you're creating. What were some of the challenges from a business perspective of like meeting that demand?
Yeah, well, I went from packing orders in my living room to my friend's ADU and then also to a facility in Old Town Chinatown. So there was definitely a lot of shifts that happened. But, being a business owner, you have to pivot and you have to be flexible. So I was willing and ready to be flexible. And thankfully, too, I don't have little small babies at home. So it made it a lot easier to navigate, just shifting into different areas of my business.
I was just researching some stats about women-owned business and saw that just 25% of women business owners seek financing. What did you do to finance the business? And something that people might not realize that don't run a small business or don't have a business is that growth sounds like, oh, you must be making a lot of money, but growth sucks a lot of cash. Like to meet those orders, you have to be able to afford to buy the shirts in the first place, and then you got to ship them. And oftentimes, you're not paid until things get delivered. So did you bootstrap it or what did you do around financing?
Yeah, I leaned on my family and friends. Like my mom let me use her credit card for my first order of shirts. And, I had a friend who believed in my vision and kind of mentored me and was able to help me out as well. So, what? It's just, I really do feel strongly like when you're passionate about something and when you're aligned to do this work, things will come into fruition. And that is exactly what happened because, to be honest, I really can't tell you how I made it this far.
Well,
the stars did align.
We are so lucky to live in a community where a lot of business people feel very supported by the other business people in this community. There's that air of, community over competition. And I'm wondering, did you have other business folks who like pitched in or came to help, or are there folks that you're really inspired by in the community?
Yeah, I would say I'd had several business owners who just gave me good advice. Stephen Green was actually one of them, Brian Stillman. And they really gave me good advice, pointed me in the right direction, who I should be connected with. Also, too, I don't compete with anyone because I really do feel like my brand is in its own lane. And we've been in the whole concept is centered around social consciousness and women empowerment, and it's really unique to Portland. And this is not a trend of ours. This is something that we've done for quite some time. So I never look at like I'm competing against someone, but I have had a lot of support from the community and other businesses.
A stat I saw recently that I felt was really encouraging was that 64% of new women-owned businesses were started by women of color last year. And I'm wondering, where have you found support and community within that community as well?
Yeah, well, I would say also too with that stat, yes, we've started our own business. However, still less than 1% of Black women receive venture capital.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we also need to continue to have a difficult conversation about why is that?
Yeah.
How come we are not receiving the capital for our business that we need? For me, in my brand, in my business, I just need to purchase large quantities of inventory to combat inflation. And I also think that's another conversation that we don't have either. So it's like finding this balance of not receiving capital, but also inflation. It can put you at a deficit, but yet and still, as women, we continue to strive through and we continue to go on with our dreams and visions.
Mm-hmm. To me, what is so frustrating is that the stats say that women-owned businesses are more successful. I think so often narratives around why people aren't getting money, people look for like a logical explanation. Their first thing is to justify, well, they must, it must be a niche business. It must not have been, but none of that is true. I mean, their statistics have shown us that private tech companies led by women achieve 35% higher ROI, and that women-founded companies in first-round capital portfolio, they outperformed companies founded by men by 63%. So statistics show us that betting on a women-owned company is going to yield better results, yet the money is being distributed to men primarily. And like you said, 1% of women of color getting money. Women receive just 7% of venture capital from startups. What do you think can be done to change that?
I think people showing up for community. Like, for example, I had a group of community members come to my retail shop. Mm-hmm. And within that hour, I generated $800 in 1 hour. So there's other options. We just have to look outside the box. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a traditional way of thinking. I just think we have to get creative and be strategic.
Yeah, that kind of comes to this point, too, of a statistic that women have a 70% success rate of crowdfunding for their businesses. Mm-hmm. And it's a higher success rate than men. And some of that is like, well, because was it just necessary? You have to go into our communities and leaning on our families, mom's credit card.
Yeah.
You just have been making it work.
Yeah.
What do you think as a city and business community we could be doing, in your opinion, to support and encourage the success of women in business, and especially those from communities of color?
I do say I can see the city and also Prosper Portland making some changes, especially in the downtown area. That's where my retail shop is, and also the fulfillment shop as well for my online store. And I do see initiatives. Again, we have to think outside the box. So we need everyone at the table, city officials, business chambers, nonprofits, showing up for small businesses. Yeah. Especially in certain neighborhoods where there has been some divestment.
I'm wondering, what does that look like?
I would say for me, it looks like just showing up for community. Mm-hmm. If we are hosting a community engagement event, showing up. If there are federal dollars that can be allocated to small businesses, make sure that they know about those resources. Also, too, with nonprofits, if you have a grant process, and just making sure that everyone knows about it and not just a certain cluster of people, making sure that the masses are able to apply and know the resources. That's true equality, is when everyone knows and everyone gets a piece of the pie.
Yeah. It's kind of like playing Monopoly. Here's all the rules for the game. Here's all the pieces. Let's put them out in the open. Mm-hmm. So everybody's playing with the same, the same deck of cards.
Yeah. Yeah. And those who haven't played with the same deck of cards, give them a little extra boost as well. That's what equality is. Like for 465 years, Black people weren't able to do a lot of things. And so we are at a significant deficit. So making sure that we have the resources to truly succeed, I think, is all of our responsibility. And I use that lens because I am a Black woman.
Well, I think one of the things like that comes up for us in real estate is that we'll see the city have I remember this is probably like 6-7 years ago, there was going to be a down payment assistant program for the Alberta Arts neighborhood, which is where our original office was located. And we looked at the terms, and one, they had the home price was non-existent in the Alberta Arts because they had it at like $250,000 to $300,000. Well, it's not there anymore in Alberta, so that's not going to work. And what we found too was that it wasn't that our clients of color were making less money, that they couldn't qualify for the same loan. They had less generational wealth. So they weren't getting that huge down payment, or in that market where we had people competing against cash, you realize it's not, we're without having everyone at the table, without talking to the actual community that you're seeking to assist and actually understand what the issues are, like well-meaning, initiatives just, they fail.
Yeah, there should have been like a committee of folks who said, okay, the average medium house in the Albina district is $500K.
Yeah.
Like, we need to raise that a little bit.
We would have to, let's put our glasses on. Yeah. To shout out to one of our agents, Alyssa Eisenstein Kruger, she had looked, when she saw that come out, she went down to the city and was like, and I love that she used her voice to be like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, I love that.
Lay it out.
Yeah.
I wanted to read a quote from one of the most influential books I've read this last few years, and that was Mia Birdsong's book, How We Show Up. How We Show Up, Reclaiming Family, Friendship, and Community. Shows that what separates us isn't only the ever-present injustices built around race, class, gender, values, and beliefs, but also our denial of our interdependence and our need for belonging. And the quote is, people do not survive racism, xenophobia, gender discrimination, and poverty without developing extraordinary skills, systems, and practices of support. And in doing so, they carve a path for everyone else. I would read this quote because it makes me think of your work in that you bringing a community together, giving a voice to community. And I feel like that you're creating a need or answering the need for belonging, for being understood, being at the table. And in 2020, you founded Love Over Hate after receiving a hateful letter in the mail with racist slurs and threats to hurt you and your family. And I have to be honest, getting ready for this interview, as I was typing things out, I just started crying, couldn't help myself, because I just thought about the fear of, as a woman and as a mother, about this type of violence and losing whatever small feelings of safety we all work to have, and hanging on so tentatively to, at the time with COVID and lockdowns, protests, and recessions. Can you share with us a little bit about this experience and then what led into you founding Love Over Hate?
Yeah, the community for PDX Love Over Hate really showed up with love, and it combated the hate, because I was going to shut everything down and not continue. That was a very difficult, scary time for me and my family. I don't take those threats lightly. The fact that they sent it to my home address was very terrifying to me. Yeah. And my first recollection was I had to protect me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
I had to make sure that we were safe. So we immediately left and went to a friend's house. And I will never forget that moment, even to this day. And we've done a lot of work because people really don't understand, and we don't talk about this enough in society, that it disrupts your nervous system.
Yeah, the trauma.
The trauma, yeah. So we had to be intentional. We had to do a lot of work to, realign our nervous system again and not be in fear, because we can't live in fear, right? I had to continue to go on, and it wasn't, my daughter is the one that encouraged me. She was like, you can't quit. You got to keep going. She's like, you got to keep going.
Yeah.
And it's I was just like, I don't think I can.
And she's the one you're probably trying so desperately to protect.
Yes.
Elcha gives me the chills. Do you mind sharing how did you take care of that piece of your mental health, your nervous system? How did with amongst everything going on, and you're running a business and you're dealing with this threat, like how did you nourish yourself and find space for a little rest or joy?
One of the things that really stuck out to me was my kids' principal at the time called me, and she said, when they came for you, they came for all of us. And that just really, really resonated with me. I mean, I had people I didn't even know they were like, we'll be there for you. One guy was like, I'll be your security guard if you need me to be. And that was just beautiful. That's what really kept me going as well, along with therapy. And just making sure that we take care of ourselves and creating our new home as a safe haven and making sure that we are protected. Yeah. But the community is really the ones that carried us through that difficult time.
We've actually had a few guests talk a lot about downtown. Jesse Burke told us about the task force that the governor was putting together. We had Stephen Green talking about coming out and supporting downtown. And I'm wondering, how are you using your voice to help your downtown community, and what can be done?
Yeah, I would say I met Jesse Burke when I was in Old Town Chinatown, and we've done a few projects together to advocate for Old Town and downtown. She's an amazing advocate. Also, too, one of the things that I've done in the current space that I'm in is that I went around to different businesses and we drafted a letter that we sent to city officials, Multnomah County, and state legislators, as well as the governor's task force. And in the letter, we just highlight what we're seeing and what we want to see change in downtown. So we gave them tangibles and ideas of what we would like to see. And some of those ideas have already been initiated, like downtown is offering free parking on Saturdays and Sundays at the Smart Park garages from November 24th to December 30th.
Oh, that is awesome.
Just to drive people downtown. So that's one of the solutions that we suggested in the letter. Also, too, just more resources, marketing resources for small businesses, because some of the small businesses don't even have an e-commerce site. And so you have to put additional money into marketing to drive people downtown. And cleanliness and safety is a big issue. And we have seen in the area that I'm in, we've seen a significant change in cleanliness and safety. So, just those small initiatives are really helpful.
I love that. And I love seeing our city understand that it is important to support our local businesses. What's so amazing about Portland, it is mostly a town of locally owned companies. There's not a lot of big chains, and there's a lot of personality. And I think something that Jesse said that you're reminding me of as you speak is ask a business person what the issues are. We don't have the luxury of ignoring it or not knowing. Like,
Right.
I know I can tell you exactly how many break-ins happen on this street and in what matter and what people are up to now and what are the trends.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, ask a business person what they need. And
Yeah, Jesse's absolutely right. I mean, we're the soldiers of downtown. We're the soldiers of our city. Like, we see everything that happens, and organizations, nonprofits, city officials should not be making decisions without talking to a vast majority of small businesses.
Mm-hmm. Amen. So 2020, you started Love Over Hate, Mimi's Fresh Teas. That was in 2018. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And do you feel like progress has been made on what you're kind of been setting out to do with these messages? Or do you feel like we have lost ground recently?
Oh my gosh. I was like, I'm just going to have to keep creating shirts and using them as a billboard. What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
We're living in interesting times.
Mm-hmm.
And I just recently came out with a new collection, but I took a different approach because we've all been through a lot these past 4 years with COVID, social unrest, women's rights been snatched from us, the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And we've all been through a lot. And I will just continue to advocate and speak out for the changes that we need. And it's just small changes, right? I like to use the analogy like this big old ice glacier, and we're all just picking away at this big old ice glacier, advocating for change, and that is how I look at it. We just have to continue to make small changes in our community. At one T-shirt at a time. That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, because problems aren't going away.
Yes. They're still here.
And you've shown that faced with big issues, you know how to effectively innovate and create movements for change. Mm-hmm. But I'm guessing there's also a part of you that would love to use this strategy and skills in a world without the challenges of racism and hate. But
it would be nice.
Till then, one T-shirt at a time.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the designs that you have available and a little bit about like where some of the other messages have come from or been inspired by?
Yeah, so usually the messages come from me and my own experience or what I'm seeing also in the community. Like one of the popular designs that I did a year ago and is still relevant to this day, I thought it would maybe get overturned, but it's roll your vote. And especially now, since we're, again, voting next year, I've been seeing such an increase in people ordering this shirt. It is like the number one right now on my website. And so that's one of the designs, most recent one. But then I just came out with one like a month ago. And it's centered around like just healing and wellness and just putting that like positive affirmations also out into the world, because I also feel that when you're advocating for change, you also need time to rest and fill your own cup. And again, we've all been through so much these past few years. I just think it's nice to for someone to be able to read just a nice positive message on your shirt as well. So finding that balance, like being, having a social conscious brand, but also to having a brand to where it's just something light and refreshing that will make anyone smile.
Fill your cup up so you can get out there and work towards chipping that iceberg away. I had the gift of attending for years Sunday services led by Reverend William Sinkford, who was the former president of the Unitarian Universalists, and he was the first Black president to lead that organization or any traditional white religious denomination, actually, in the United States. And it was amazing to have him here in Portland during that time. And in a private conversation he and I had leading up to the Black Lives Matter movement, he had shared that he was getting feedback from the congregation here in Portland that they thought he was focusing on the BLM movement too much. And I'm embarrassed to admit it, but it really surprised me. Chokes me up a little bit now I think about that. And at the time I thought, what the hell else is there? Because kind of the response that I think that you got is like, you come for one person, you come for all of us. And how could anyone think the attention of focus was too much when looking all around, we can see just how much work needs to be done? What is too much? But as a leader in this movement, with what I guess is also mostly a white audience, at least in the city, do you ever feel the pressure of being asked to back off or change your message? And what is that like for you? And how does that shape your strategy or thinking?
Yeah, I've had multiple people ask me, are you still going to do social justice? And I'm thinking, is there still racism and systematic oppression? Yes, I am. Until things change. It's more than just a T-shirt, right? Mm-hmm. It is really like a brand that centers around community, because part of my work as a community organizer is that you have to create relationships. And the best way to do that is to gather in community, right? Mm-hmm. To have community engagement events. So you'll see us doing like a Love Your Selfie event where we have like sound baths, bowls, and a little bowl that rings really loud, and so many people showed up for that. But I'm a firm believer in you have to build genuine relationships with people so we can have these tough conversations.
And that's really about calling more people in to inspire the work to join, right? Like building that community, welcoming people in. Is there anything you want to ask our listeners to think about, or one action you'd like to see everyone do to help build a stronger and more inclusive community?
Yeah, I would just encourage everyone to look around in your neighborhoods, look around at your job. If you're on a board somewhere and everyone is white, ask the question as to why. Mm-hmm. And I do feel that is where change comes from. And sometimes it's difficult for people to ask those questions, or maybe they don't know how. But I just think having a conversation about that and seeing change happens within us. Change happens within us.
Yeah. And to remember, too, like they are difficult conversations that we have to risk being vulnerable.
We have to. We have to experience discomfort.
Mm-hmm. And then like it's like, okay, I'm fully human, and not most of us don't want to be.
Let's just all get uncomfortable.
Yes. Circling back to Mia Birdsong, who I was quoting earlier, and she was just saying, and I hear you saying it too, is that what separates us isn't the ever-present injustices built around race, class, gender, but also the denial of our independence and our need for belonging. Like, we got to start with community. It's something that was really awakened me in her book is she was talking about the economy of relationships and then the economy of money. And sometimes they work against each other, well, oftentimes in this society. Like, if you don't have money, you have to really lean on relationships, and that's a part of, too, the gentrification that we were talking about. It's like, it's not about disrupting, like people having to move. It's about losing that whole social network of people watching out for you on the street and someone safe to send your kid to next door when you need to. Like that's the loss, and that it's hard to pay for those. You can't pay for those things, and then the economy of money that can like insulate us from having to build those strong relationships. And you so much of what you're talking about as a community organizer, I'm wondering if you can kind of put that into some practical terms for our listeners of like, what does it mean to build community?
Yeah.
What does that really look like?
Yeah, I want to also, too, that remind all of us that, we're such a technology-driven and social media-driven society now that we forget that we have to show up in community. Everything can't be on Zoom or on Instagram. You have to show up and have those interpersonal connections with people. And that, to me, is what building relationship is. Example, too, like I curated a African-American walk-in museum for several years with another group of moms. And that is what community looks like. I mean, we were able to showcase and highlight to over 350 families and share our history and culture. Another thing that I've done, and we did a back-to-school cookout and school supplies drive. again, fed over like 400 families. We got donations from like amazing locally owned businesses that just showed up for community. And that's what that looks like. They sponsored the event. We were able to give kids school supplies and backpacks and hats and just the basic necessities. That's what showing up for community is. Regardless if you have money or not, anyone, you should be showing up for community. How can you contribute to society? Before I was probably born, that's what we used to do. We used to look out for our neighbors. We used to look out for each other. And we've kind of gotten away from that.
Yeah, I feel like a radical act these days could just be organizing your neighbors for a neighborhood potluck.
A neighborhood potluck or like a neighborhood walk. That would be pretty cool. Like a neighborhood walk, everyone come downtown and just walk around and then look at all the cool shops. So that's what, like a community walk. Maybe we should organize one of those.
Yeah, I love it. Like, get out.
Yeah.
We just recently had a staff potluck, everybody bringing something. And I just, post-pandemic world, it's such a wonderful reminder. Like, it felt good just to sit down and have a meal with our crew.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Food always connects us.
Yes. I know, bring all the school supplies in the world.
Me.
For good food. Speaking of community, you've also done some really exciting partnerships here in the city. I know you partnered with the Thorns. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was so fun. I partnered with them a couple times, and they're such a great organization, and they really do care about the community.
What was the partnership that you did with the Thorns? Can you describe it?
They wore my Love Over Hate T-shirt. And then also, too, I did a partnership with Simone Charlie, who's a former Thorns player, but now she plays for Angel City. And we did a shirt that says Play Like a Girl because there is an intersectionality between women-owned businesses and women in sports and the lack thereof, right? And ironically, on Sunday, I'm going, someone from the Thorns reached out to me, and I'm going to WISE event where it talks about women entrepreneurs and we talk about women in sports.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. And we have so many leaders, so many female women leaders in sports in this city. Yeah. And it's cool to see them be highlighted.
Yeah. I want to say, too, also Simone Charlie and Crystal Dunn came to an event that I was doing and came and shopped and supported. Also, too, there were couple other Thorn players who came and just, I was doing a community event and they came out to support. So it's been amazing.
It makes a big difference having those people in the room.
Yeah.
Like I got you.
Yep.
I hear when people show up. Yeah. You're mentioning some of our all-stars of the Thorns showing up for events. Have you had other like celebrities or people that have really been able to influence and help like spread the word about Mimi's Fresh Teas?
I would say Marie Farley also reached out to me, a New York Times bestseller. She DM'd me on Instagram back in 2020 and was like, I heard about the letter that you received, that's awful. I was so inspired by the work that she does. I sent her a shirt, and she actually wore my shirt and posted it on Instagram, and I still have that picture on my Instagram as well.
That's so cool. Yeah. And just realizing when you have people, how meaningful from all around the country, right? Yeah. Reaching out. Have you had any other folks reach out and want to be a part of the Mimi's Fresh Teas movement?
Yeah, I have people reaching out all the time saying, I got this cool T-shirt idea, and what do you think of this? And one of the things that I loved, I went and spoke to a 5th grade classroom, and the 5th graders came up with some amazing T-shirt designs. They were really, really cool. So I have like a whole stack of them right now that I'm like, okay, I got to get designing on like a few of these because these are really good.
Where can our listeners purchase these T-shirts, whether it be online or in person?
Yeah, you can purchase at mimisfreshteaspdx.com. That's our e-commerce site. Or in person at 980 Southwest Morrison Street in downtown Portland.
Thank you so much for making our city a place that fights for and protects living room for all. your fellow Joypunks really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.